All right, there we go. Good morning, everyone, from a very, very cold Johannesburg. Welcome to the webinar series from Ray of Green Sustainability called In Conversation With, where with every session, I deep dive into a variety of topics with various creatives, and we deep dive with regards to how sustainability intersects with the creative industry as well. My name is Yoanna and I am a designer, I'm a concept creator and sustainability consultant. I have co-founded a consulting agency based in Johannesburg called Creatively Connected Consulting, where essentially what we do is take businesses and brands on a journey from ideation through to production in an environmentally sound manner. So this week, I'll be speaking to Yoanna Chikezie, who is the founder of the most incredible innovation hub that I have heard of coming out of Nigeria. And just before we begin, for anyone that will be wanting to ask any questions, as per usual, please use the Q&A function and not the chat function. I don't really monitor the chat function. And please don't use the raise hand function. I'd much rather prefer it if you just popped questions into the Q&A. At the end of the session, I will be sharing Yoanna's LinkedIn. It will be, if you look on LinkedIn, I will just pop you all her details there so you can reach out to my guest over there. And let's begin. So good morning, Yoanna. Thank you very much for joining me. Would you mind introducing yourself and letting my, my guests know who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. Good morning, Yoanna. Thank you so much for inviting me to your webinar today. So just as Yoanna said, I founded a hub called The Assembly. We're based in Lagos, Nigeria, and we focus on upskilling and upscaling entrepreneurs and creatives in the fashion industry. We do a number of different things, but primarily we run training programs, incubation and recruitment for entrepreneurs and creatives, especially pre-seed and early stage founders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. So you're based in Lagos, buzzing and completely incredibly crazy Lagos. So, you know, talk me through the actual startup of the Assembly Hub, because this wasn't what you always did, right?
No, so my career began as a fashion stylist based in the UK. I was born and raised in the UK. I worked with a number of publications as a fashion writer, journalist, and stylist. And I was really passionate and really kind of driven to tell the stories of, African culture and lifestyle. Obviously, in England, it was one of those things where to find a magazine that kind of like spoke to the African experience, especially as it comes to lifestyle and fashion, was pretty hard then. So I was kind of on this mission to like work with people who also shared the same sentiments as I did, which was, what are we wearing on the continent, and what are we inspired by? How do we tell our stories? How do we express our culture? So I worked with a number of publications. One was called Fab Magazine, and another one called TW. I also worked with Pride Magazine and other types of publications on that. And then I did run a TV station for a couple of years. It was a channel called Spice TV. And again, it was all about showcasing global African fashion to a global audience. Right. And that was really interesting because there it was when I really got to understand, fashion entrepreneurs on the continent. And we did a lot of showcasing. We covered pretty much every fashion week across Africa. At a time, typically you would be covering London Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, and we did all of that. But then there wasn't really like a platform that was showcasing, for example, SA Fashion Week or Cape Town Fashion Week or Nairobi or Dakar. So it was really like important for me as the channel manager to make sure that we were showing this kind of cross a dialogue between, you know, what was happening on the continent with the rest of the world. So, and then in 2016, I decided to launch the assembly. Obviously, at the time, I knew I wanted to do something to kind of help close the gaps in terms of entrepreneurship and fashion. So you find that, you know, creatives are very talented, they're very skilled, but opportunity is not in abundance. It's really kind of like, you know how it is in fashion. It's who do you know, how, you know, and almost like your close network. But then if you are an entrepreneur in a particular area, or you've just graduated and you have an idea, where do you go to build on that idea? Where do you go to get a mentor or funding? So for me, it was great to showcase all these amazing stories around Africa, but then I was concerned with the background, what was happening behind the scenes, and with the same stories, you know, lack of access to funding. I don't understand how to market my brand. I'm trying to build a ready-to-wear line, but I'm unable to scale, and all of these various challenges that we find. So that was really how the assembly was birthed.
Incredible. So, you know, our conversation today is centering around how tech intersects with fashion. And that's something that your innovation hub has been doing a lot of. I was wondering if you can maybe talk us through what you're doing in the space right now.
Yes, of course. So part of the work that we do at the Assembly is to run incubation programs, specifically targeted to pre-seed and early stage founders. And last year, we started a incubator for fashion tech entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs who were interested in exploring how fashion can solve problems, but leveraging technology, and especially trying to address the sustainability question that we find in the industry currently. And it's a collaborational program with the British Council and Ventures Platform. And Ventures Platform is, so sorry, I have my kids in the back.
No, that's absolutely fine.
Hopefully it goes down. Okay. So basically, we partnered with Ventures Platform, and Ventures Platform is a tech hub that specializes in early stage and growth stage technology startups. So I'm really sorry. I'm gonna have to check on
That's
my
fine.
son.
Please go ahead. Go ahead. We'll hold. Yeah, so our guest will be back in a little bit. It's just the joys of working at home, and that is perfectly understandable. Just gonna mute and go off video for a bit.
Hello, Ridwana, I'm back.
Yes, that is perfectly fine. Shame. Are they okay?
Yes, it's just temper tantrums and squabbles. Working, that's the life now.
Just the
But thank you
joys.
for having me.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, so where was I? So basically, the incubation program was really looking to support entrepreneurs who are looking to explore technology and how various challenges, be that environmental challenges, be that consumer challenges or industry challenges, how can fashion solve those problems, or how can I leverage technology to do that?
Okay, really, really interesting. You know, we've been seeing sort of from Europe and the Americas, the idea of virtual fitting rooms, for example. Are we seeing anything like that coming out of your hub?
Yeah, so a number of entrepreneurs that we're currently incubating are exploring, so trying to meet that challenge of you know, I buy something, it doesn't fit me too well. And that's a very common story here, because a lot of the designers and how the industry works here is it's very kind of really bespoke, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
have an art style and I want you to make it made to, you know, made to measure, made to order. So we have a few design entrepreneurs who are trying to explore how to create virtual fitting rooms, or with their e-commerce platform. So how can I make an easier option for my customers to try on something before they buy? And so yeah, a number of them are working on those types of solutions as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That is really, really interesting. I'd love to be able to kept in the loop when that actually starts maybe launching. I think it would be incredible. That's one of the things that I think maybe as Africans we kind of struggle with, is trying to bridge that divide between technology and fashion, because one is very tangible and one is almost like impossible for the other to sort of conceive, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, talk me through your opinion, your viewpoint about the necessity of enmeshing technology with fashion.
So I think for me, I try not to create very kind of big expectations, because when you hear tech and fashion, you know, you'd hear about, you know, high-tech wearables, you hear AI, you hear robotics, big data, and all of these like really amazing big concepts. And the honest truth, in reality, if you aren't a tech person, if you're not a programmer, these are really kind of far removed concepts. So what we try to do is encourage entrepreneurs to understand, okay, what is the problem that you want to solve, and how can you solve that, whether it's using technology or otherwise. And we also try to encourage this idea of using what you have locally and your resources around you and in your environment, because um, the truth is, in Africa generally, and even more so in Nigeria, it's not as developed as other markets, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
don't even have the institutions or the platforms where you can actually test an idea. So we lack a lot of research and development. And the truth is, a lot of research and R&D goes into these really big fashion tech solutions that you're seeing now.
Mm-hmm.
And so without that, how do you take that jump from here's my idea to trying to adopt AI and, you know, all of these types of really big concepts? So we really try to encourage entrepreneurs to look around them and see and find how you can use your resources to create solutions. So I'll give you an example. There's one particular designer who was interested in this, you know, how hair contributes to waste and the environment. And she was exploring how she could work with hair salons to collect waste and find a way of recycling hair. So when I'm saying hair, I'm talking about, you know, things like hair extensions. And, you know, beauty and hair is a really big business in Africa. And you can imagine
Mm-hmm.
how extensions we go through on a daily or weekly basis. And so she was
Yeah.
really curious to see how, you know, what happens to this hair after you take it out and you throw it away, and it's only going to go into, you know, landfill and things like this. So she was trying to explore how she could create something that she was able to recycle hair and use that for women who had disabilities, whether it's alopecia or any kind of like hair condition. So I found that really interesting. And
That
there were
is
other things around,
amazing.
yeah. And, you know, I think one of the things that helped bring up that idea was we use a lot of design thinking in our classes. So over like a 3-day period, you have them working together, brainstorming and trying to kind of like almost fall in love with the problem, so that
Mm-hmm.
they're very, very laser focused on the solution that they're trying to bring about. So, and then we have other designers who are obviously interested in things like plastics and working with rural women on, you know, making bags from recycled plastics and things like this. So, and I don't see anything wrong with that. It doesn't, just because it's not, you know, glowing or flashing or you need an app to use it, it doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's not technology. It doesn't mean that you're not innovating, right? It's how do you solve
Absolutely.
problems with something new. um
Absolutely.
so so yeah, we try to kind of you know, merge those two concepts. And again, like obviously with COVID-19, you find that now we're trying to find ways of solving a health challenge using fashion. And we've seen how fashion, the garment industry has been so important in whether it's recyclable PPE, reusable PPEs. Now we're seeing the function of the fashion industry, design, innovation. And so
Mm-hmm.
we're really like excited to see what will come out of
Mm-hmm.
this whole period and this whole pandemic. So another thing that we also try to encourage and explore is the idea of like low technology. So if you think about weaving machines that are used in various parts of the continent, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
weaving, threading, you know, this to me, this is technology, right? It may not be,
Absolutely.
um, you know, your kind of like your whistles and your blow, but it's technology. So how do we innovate those technologies, those machines, those craftsmanship that has been like centuries old? How do we now use that to define what technology and fashion can mean on the continent, and how
Mm-hmm.
can we make it accessible so that we are innovating our traditional and indigenous mechanisms when it comes to textile production, for example. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the things that we try to explore our entrepreneurs. But obviously in the same vein as well, like, you know, you have things like e-commerce happening, you have options where, you know, how can I find a tailor, how can I find a designer, how can I provide an educational solution for
Mm-hmm.
young students? So all of that is also happening as well. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is fabulously interesting. You know, going back to the idea of low tech, I think that, you know, the looms, for example, were like one of the first kinds of technology that actually had presented itself in the industry hundreds of years ago. So taking what you have already and turning it into something more is always a challenge. But I think it's a, you know, for lack of a better adjective, it's a delicious challenge, because how do you take something as old and archaic as an idea of a weaving loom and turn it into something sexy, you know? And I think that the industry is looking more and more that way. You know, if you look at trends, for example, like the slow fashion trend, it's going to stick around for a really long time, and this is where that kind of low tech solutions come in. But also, it's like you say, it's not about reinventing the wheel. The biggest problem with, for example, sustainability and the idea of around sustainability is that we're not going to be able to recycle our way out of the mess that we're in currently. We have to think about how do we not add more to that mess anyway. You know, I have a question here that was sent to me on email about gender. You know, the person wants to know, it's Jack. I can't pronounce Jack's surname, but anyway, he wants to know how is it, you know, how is the gender divide within the tech fashion space within your incubator?
Also, interestingly, we have about, I think we have, it's like a 70-30, so 70% female and 30% male. Um, yeah.
That's
uh,
amazing. That's actually
yeah,
really cool.
yeah, and again, I think it comes from this place of what problem do I want to solve, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, where do I fit on the value chain, and how can we do things differently. So, and I think generally with all of our programs, we have a 70-30 split. You know, 70% women, 30% male. And I think it doesn't come from a place of I'm trying to, like, I'm a tech bro trying to come into fashion. It's really just people having identifying problems that they want to solve.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have another question on email here, and Emeka wants to know what sort of, hold on, let me just, sorry, she wants to, I forgot the question. I was memorizing these questions before the webinar. Anyway, so Emeka wants to know, what sort of gaps do you see in the fashion tech space that people could actually capitalize on right now?
Yeah, I think that there can be a lot of opportunities when it comes to production and manufacturing. Also research and development, and definitely education.
Mm-hmm,
So if I think about how you know, we lack you know, institutions and educational institutions that can provide certification and access to a variety of subjects in the fashion discipline, I definitely feel that there's an opportunity there. And also to kind of provide access to people who wouldn't necessarily be able to go or afford these types of schools.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a lot that can be done in manufacturing. As you know, it's really difficult to source consistently raw materials on the continent, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very difficult also to ensure standardization. So while I am not necessarily an advocate for mass manufacturing, but I do think that there is definitely an opportunity for job creation in manufacturing. But it's just that how do we try to bridge the gap between, you know, the sustainability, also being profitable as well. So I think that there's opportunities there.
Mm-hmm.
And also just to go back to this idea of, like, you know, traditional and ancient ways of production. How can we preserve that? But how do we leverage technology to really, like, take it to the next level and really innovate so that this is something that we can create as an efficiency or almost like a USP
Mm-hmm.
for our continent that other
Mm-hmm.
people can also gain access to. And I also think there's an opportunity with how people are connected with um, opportunities, be that finance, funding, be that, because that's a really big issue. So I think
Mm-hmm.
for me, there's so much along the value chain. I think really understand, okay, where do I fit? So what is the problem that can be solved, and how can I bridge that gap with technology?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Those are some really good points over there. So you being currently based in Lagos and the Innovation Hub being based in Lagos too, do you have plans to grow it outside of Lagos?
Yeah, absolutely. We've always wanted to, like, the assembly has always existed to bridge gaps in fashion. So whether that's looking in areas like the north, whether that's looking at the east or the south, definitely we don't see. I think that we may be based in Lagos, but we are very much a platform that because like even the incubator we're running is in Abuja, which is the
Mm-hmm,
capital, while we're in
mm-hmm,
Lagos. But we've always been that platform that has always wanted to seek, um, you know, multiple locations, but also multiple opportunities outside of Nigeria. And we've already started collaborating with, like, UK hubs as well.
mm-hmm.
And we're really, like, interested to see how we collaborate with hubs in other parts of the continent 100%.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's amazing. So definitely open for collaboration if anyone is interested. And how much 3D printing is actually done at the assembly?
So we don't actually do 3D printing at the assembly. If anything, it's something that we have worked with, like, for example, we've worked with General Electric. They have an innovation lab, and we've been able to do some partnerships with them where entrepreneurs or designers have been able to use their facilities. But it's something that we want to incorporate in the near future. But currently, we don't offer that particular service.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Interesting. There's definitely opportunities there, I guess, with the world moving more towards trying to do rapid prototyping and stuff. I think it's an interesting concept. I also think that on the continent, we're not essentially exploring it as much as we should. And I think it's probably just a case of maybe we don't have the right knowledge set, perhaps. A lot of the people that I speak to on the side here are using 3D printing, for example, to manufacture parts for um, the PPE masks, for example, that sort of thing. But I think it would be very interesting at some point to be able to explore those avenues. So, in terms of governmental support, do you think that governments are doing enough, your government specifically is doing enough to support this, to support tech entrepreneurs who are in the space of fashion?
I think it's just generally the startup ecosystem in general. I know that the government have tried to put in certain types of creative industry funds together to provide palliative measures. But I guess the problem is the access. So some of these criteria to get hold of these types of funds are just they're too high, and they're too almost out of touch from the reality of trying to grow a startup in Nigeria. So I think a lot of help and more kind of I think for me, it's really about how in touch are you with the reality of fashion tech, creative industries. And I think sometimes governments, they mean well with these big incentives, but then it doesn't create the impact that was desired, because it just lacks the necessary research and insight to really
Mm-hmm.
tailor support for the everyday entrepreneur. There's also, I know, like there's a number of organizations like the Lagos State Employment Fund. They've done a lot of things around capacity building and supporting tech entrepreneurs. But again, if you ask a creative, they'll say no, there is no help, there is no support. But again, I think there's just this kind of like disconnection from what's happening in reality to these really big policies that are created for the creative industry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have a question on Facebook, and the person wants to know how many entrepreneurs thus far have you been nurturing at the assembly?
Okay, thank you for the question. I know this off my head because we did the numbers. So we've directly engaged 1,869 entrepreneurs.
That is
However,
remarkable.
yeah, that's our direct engagement. So someone who's either come through an incubator, someone who's been mentored, someone who's done a training. But then obviously there's the indirect impact that we take very seriously, because when you empower one entrepreneur, that entrepreneur is enabled to build a business where they can employ 3 or 4 other people, and obviously other interactions across the value chain that happens. So yeah, that's the number.
That's amazing. That is really, really remarkable. And so plans for 2021, what are those?
We're trying to get through 2020 with
In my mind,
everything that's going.
2020 is cancelled.
Yeah, I know. Like for us, though, 2020 is not cancelled. I think we've done so much learning in this past 4 months that we've ever done, ever. Whether
That's
it's,
true.
learning about the manufacturing, whether it's about relearning education, we've done so much learning as a team. But definitely for 2021, we're really excited to expand some of our programs to other states in Nigeria. And I guess it's just really to how do we create the platform so it's more accessible to entrepreneurs wherever you are on the continent. So we're
Mm-hmm.
really looking at how do we digitalize our platform and optimize it so that it's not something that where you have to be physically present to gain access to our resources. So that's one of the things that we're going to be working on for 2021.
That's incredible. Do you think that there is the opportunity for you to maybe expand outside of Nigeria?
Of course, yeah, of course. It's all about resources and funding and making sure that we have strong partnerships in the locations that we would want to go into, but definitely.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That is just amazing. Um, so, in terms of fully fledged businesses that have passed through your hands, um, do they have access to support after they've left the program at the assembly?
Yes, they do. So that's really another reason why organizations like us, because it's not a 2 to 3 months incubator program and then we say goodbye. There's a continuous engagement, continuous support, whether that's you having access to a community that you can collaborate with, or whether that's you having access to a business coach. These are things that we've kind of built into our model to ensure that we are kind of with you forever. Like we are the big sister or the big brother in your creative journey. And we found that even some entrepreneurs may have decided no longer to pursue a particular um, idea, and then they kind of have a new idea, and then they find that, oh, I need the assembly all over again because I'm trying to figure out how to produce or work with um, you know artisans in the north and really
Mm-hmm.
need help trying to scale that idea. Or we've had people who have come through us as an entrepreneur, but then they've kind of gone back to say, you know what, I'm actually interested in coaching or mentoring. And so we
Mm-hmm.
have that kind of loop that kind of continues. I don't think you ever finish being an entrepreneur. You don't ever finish being a creative. So it's nice to know that, the assembly kind of provides that hand holding at whatever stage that you are in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's really incredible. So apart from resources, which I think would be the obvious challenge, what other challenges that you face? And COVID aside, I'm just speaking in general. What other challenges are you facing?
I would say, I guess, as we're growing, we're finding that the team coming exceptionally stretched, because there is no kind of finite number on who can have access to the assembly. So I know that at times our capacity can be stretched, and so we're looking at ways of create some sort of like agent ambassador model where you can still have touch points with the community, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to be burdensome to the core team. So that's one thing. And another thing as well, I would say is because the foundation hasn't been built when it comes to fashion education, fashion this, we find that we are constantly having to do a lot of groundwork before we can help entrepreneur scale, or from point A to point B. So, and in the absence of not having, so like for example in the UK, you have a number of fashion schools, and typically designers, creatives have gone through these fashion schools. They've kind of understood what it needs to know about discipline before they now build and as an entrepreneur, for example.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
here we don't have that. So we're doing a lot of the foundational work and a lot of the enterprise building work, before an entrepreneur can really say that, okay, I really understand what it is that I'm trying to achieve. But it's also a good challenge because it just means that we are really we're a solution that people need, I guess.
Mm-hmm. 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 And from what age are you allowing people to join the assembly?
So our typical age is 21 to 35.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of really young creatives that we work with, and typically, yeah, so it's typically 21 to the age of 35. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Have you had any interest from sort of teenagers, school-going kids, kids of school-going age, interested in joining any of your programs?
Yeah, we have, but it's not very common. But we have had
Mm-hmm.
a few.
Mm-hmm.
What we've done is we've worked with organizations that specialize in teenage training. So where we don't necessarily have that as a service or as a particular program, we would partner with organizations. So like there's one called Jam Nigeria, and
Mm-hmm.
we've done a number of talks and career talks and things like this in with their program. So we tend to partner where we don't have a focus, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really amazing. That's quite incredible. And I ask this because I think the trend going forward, especially within education, is that more and more kids will no longer want to take a gap year to go traveling, but they will want to take a sort of an entrepreneurial gap year, if you like. And I see there's a lot of potential in the space for that, in that these kids will take a gap year between finishing their final year of school and deciding if they want to go into tertiary formal education. Because more and more, the trend within recruitment will also be that people in HR will start wanting to look at people's resumes and see if you've had any startup experience, if you've had any experience in building a little business, or the lemonade stand, but on steroids almost. So I think there's huge potential there as well. Um,
Right.
but yeah, so I just
Right.
have a comment on Facebook with this is Mpo saying thank you so much. I think that what you're doing is incredible. We need this in SA.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, I have a question here from Nosy Beles. Oh, it's not a question. Oh no, it is a question. She says, "Is Yoanna collaborating with anyone in SA? Are
No,
you
that's
currently doing any collabs with SA?"
no, but we're very open to you. I would absolutely love to.
All right, so Nozibela, there you go. I'll put you in touch with Joanna on LinkedIn, and then you guys can chat about that a little bit further. I think that the idea of maker spaces and innovation hubs are an incredible way for people to gently segue into industries without that sort of financial shock or even just the school fees of starting up your own business and then failing miserably and wasting time and money, and you lose steam halfway through. So having someone hold your hand through the process, I think is really incredible. So I have a wildcard question for you, and then I'm going to let you go because I've taken up a decent amount of your time now. And that is, what role do you think tech could play within the transparency in, for example, a fashion supply chain?
Oh, a very, very big role. I mean, we know that number of brands make really big claims, and now that consumers are becoming increasingly demanding of where are my clothes made from, and are you who you say you are. I think technology can definitely play a really big role, and it's important because the more transparency there is, the more we can be sure that the impact that we're trying to seek is actually being created, and it's not about greenwashing, as they say. So yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Fabulous. I think that any parting shots that you'd like to share with the attendees?
No, but just on your question, I just remembered I came across a platform recently called Good on You, and they have this. I don't know if you've heard of it, but they have this app where thousands of different brands around the world, they vet them, and they give them a traceability mark to ensure that they are who they are, who they say they are, and then consumers are able to also write reviews of their experience or what they know about these brands, and then they kind of get like a ranking of how sustainable is this business. And I think that was a really, really way of, as you said, providing accountability and transparency in the way consumers shop and the way businesses build their model, so that it's either inclusive or diverse, or it ensures that people are being paid. So whatever that means for your business, I thought that was a really good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. To me, I think that solutions for transparency could be as simple as QR codes on a tag, where you're able to perhaps donate a little bit of money to the person who actually sewed your garment, because usually those are the people that are the worst paid, right? In the entire value chain, it's the person who's touching your garment the most that is the worst paid. It could be something as simple as that to something as involved as what you just described now. But yeah, I think that this would be the last question that I have. I'm just checking my Facebook, and nope, we're good on there. Joanna, thank you so much. I appreciate your time incredibly. And I hope your kids are going to they're going to forgive you for neglecting them for like all of 40 minutes.
Oh gosh, yeah, they're fine. They come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To everyone listening, I thank you very much for attending. As usual, I will be posting the recording of this on any of the channels that you may have found the link for this recording. Next week brings us to the last episode in this series of webinars, and we'll be talking social entrepreneurship. And I do hope that you will join us then. So thank you very much. And thank you again, Joanna. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank
All
you.
right. Cheers then. Bye-bye.